she, like a perennial flower, always longed for a steady place in which to put down permanent roots. Aunt Tilly's Inn, perched high above the Atlantic, had given her that grounding. Years later, no longer a gangly teenager with a mouthful of braces, she still loved living in Harborside. After Kinsley graduated from high school, her aunt had moved out of the caretaker's quarters that they'd shared and converted a room at the back of the inn for herself, leaving the cottage solely to her niece. Kinsley transformed the space into her own private oasis, where she resided and occasionally met with clients for SeaScapes. Although the caretaker's cottage came equipped with a fully functioning kitchen, Aunt Tilly still spoiled her with homemade dishes from the inn after an exhausting day of gardening work. Despite Kinsley's age, she didn't decline the hospitality her aunt so freely gave, or protest the occasional luscious meals packaged and secretly tucked within the confines of her refrigerator, waiting to be reheated at a moment's notice. Her aunt tended to show her love through food, and Kinsley willingly obliged. Kinsley brushed the loose hair that had escaped her long blonde braid away from her face with her forearm. Her hair would be bleached platinum by summer's end due to the many hours working outdoors. She then wiped her hands along her faded jeans to remove any remaining crumbs or mustard remnants from her sandwich. She hated to leave the comfort and the roaring sound of the ocean, but she had a lot more work to do. Kinsley had promised her Aunt Tilly that despite her ever-growing list of clients, she'd replace the hydrangea bush that had perished last winter, clean up the yard, and place full, blooming containers throughout the property. The colorful containers were needed, as the summer perennials were not yet in full swing, and she needed to beautify the place before the big event that her aunt was participating in for the 3rd year in a row, the walk-ins. The walk-ins was an annual parade of homes where several local bed and breakfast establishments signed up for an open house showcase tour. Attendees obtained a map showing the participating homes and walked the route, going through the inns at their leisure. Since most of the inns that had taken part were now official SeaScapes clients, the event gave Kinsley a chance to showcase her work, too. Last year, she'd been featured in Coastal Living, standing alongside one of the stately Harborside homes. Kinsley hoped this year good things would come for Aunt Tilly, too, like a chance for the Salty Breeze Inn to be featured in the prominent magazine. But she'd better not get ahead of herself, though one couldn't blame her for daring to dream. She had always believed her aunt deserved so much more than Kinsley could possibly ever repay. Tilly's giving spirit was the heartbeat to not only her, but their community as well, as she volunteered for anything and everything, despite her own long hours of work. Kinsley flipped the wicker lid closed on her lunch basket and then rose to a standing position. She stretched her arms high above her head and inhaled one last cleansing breath before grudgingly retrieving the basket and turning her back to the sea. After dodging a few tide pools scattered with sea urchins and navigating across several seaweed-covered boulders, she finally made her way safely atop the cliff walk. The concrete cliff walk flanked the Salty Breeze Inn, traveled the coastline, and spanned miles in both directions from her Aunt Tilly's estate. To the right, if she continued down the path for roughly half a mile, it would take her to the private sandy beach reserved exclusively for Harborside residents. To the left, the cliff walk would snake its way to the marina, where yachts and sailboats moored idly in the water, waiting for their captains to navigate them to the Atlantic Ocean. And beyond that, Breakwater Lighthouse jutted out from the mile-long rock jetty, ready to guide vessels safely home in the event the fog rolled in, or an impending storm broke, which in Maine was quite common. Kinsley promised herself that a boat would somehow be in her future. She hated to take that leap now, though, as the summer season was the busiest time for SeaScapes, and she wouldn't have time to enjoy that type of luxury. Although winter had its own appeal for her business, too. She loved the opportunity to decorate the wealthy Harborside homes and businesses for Christmas with live greenery, seasonal poinsettias,